Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you the updated battle group overview video for the 352nd Infantry Division. So this is actually the last of the original divisions that I have to do the updated battle group overview video for. So yeah, as usual, I'm going to be talking about balance changes. I'm going to be talking about what I have changed in my own division since the last battle group overview video, and as usual we will start off with the recon tab. So in the recon tab things are pretty simple and pretty much the same as I had them before, except for one exception. I removed the sBW204 from my division. So let's first of all talk about the units that I have. We have the AntiAir here. They are the 2-man recon squads, and they come with the Kubel MG. So they're cheap, and they do come with this Kubel. Now this Kubel is the thing that you use to push salients. So those gaps in the front lines, you want to just push the Kubel through, and it has the 7HE there that's more than enough to kill like a mortar or something that you might come across, which is quite nice. Also what you can do with them is just hide them behind trees and affect the front line but not be seen. And that's quite annoying for the enemy to have to deal with, because they have to drive right up to the tree line where you're hiding behind and kill the little Kubel that's there in order to stop you gaining ground. But yeah, that's what the Kubel is great for, and that's what this little combination is great for. And the reason I have these over like the BMW, for example, is because the BMW is 30 points and it comes with, obviously, it's a recon vehicle. But if you look at the stats, it's exactly the same as the Kubel MG pretty much, except from the speed and obviously the optics. So yeah, to me it's a no-brainer. You may as well have the Kubel MG and use the AntiAir as recon, and rather than have the BMW R75, which is just more expensive and will get killed just as easily. So aside from that, we do have the Fusilier squads, and these are 40-point infantry squads. They're pretty damn expensive for infantry. Considering that the transport vehicle doesn't cost anything, they are just simply 40-point squads. But the great thing about them is they do have the ability to fight at close range with 8HE and at long range with 6HE. Further to that, they also have the 100-meter range AT grenade and very high optics. So generally what I would suggest with the 352nd is you're going to be wanting to use these Fusiliers to supplement your infantry throughout the game, to not only provide recon but also decent fire support and relative AT, especially in the early game. But yeah, like if they get whittled down to like 3 or 2-man squads, then put them on return fire and use them as standard recon squads. But in the meantime, these squads should be used as full-blown like fire support squads to support your infantry. Now, as for these sBW204s, they're just not very good. I think if the main gun on the sBW204 had some HE, it might have some value, but without that, it's kind of just not great. Also, the availability is incredibly low across the board. You can see you can only get 1 in Phase A, then you can only get them as cards of 2 in Phase B, which for a division that only has 4 slots in the recon tab doesn't make them desirable at all. Like maybe if you could get 3 in Phase A on 1 card, then it might be worth bringing them in, but otherwise definitely not. There's just, the Fusiliers are just so much better in so many ways. Now the sBW204 CDM, this actually got a price buff. It was reduced from 85 points to 65 points, I think, or 85 points to 75 points, sorry, but still is definitely not worth bringing in at any point in the game, in my opinion. So that's that. Let's move on to the infantry tab. So the infantry tab here is pretty simple to start. We have the Grenführer, and I believe my Phase A is pretty much exactly the same as I had it before. We've got the Grenführer, Osttruppen, 2 squads of grenadiers with 1-star veterancy, and the MG42. So Osttruppen, they are your like mainline infantry that you sort of sacrifice to enemy infantry and fire support in order to reveal them and hit them with your own infantry and fire support. And that infantry that you will be using to support will be the Grenadiers, because these are 1-star experience. They have exactly the same stats as the Osttruppen, except from the Grenadiers are not disheartened and they have that extra experience, which means when they're with a command, they have 2-star experience, which increases their accuracy, rate of fire, morale, etc. So that's all great. Then you have the MG42 to back it all up, 800 meter range, 9 HE, can't really go wrong. It matches the MG34 for the slot of the best MG that you can get in Phase A, and definitely does wonders. It's just so much better than like the Vickers, for example, that the Allies can get. Kind of matches up with the 50 cal quite well, but not often you see 50 cal infantry squads. So that's pretty much your Phase A. Grenadier. Only thing I should probably mention about these guys is make sure you use their smoke. This can be used in so many ways to not only cover the squad itself from being killed, but other squads as well. If something nearby, like an AT gun, for example, is being targeted by a Cromwell, then smoke it. Just smoke it off quick. The great thing about these smoke grenades is they basically land immediately, and they make that big puff of smoke that's just really, really helpful. So yeah, make sure you use the Grenadier smoke throughout the game. Now, as for Phase B, we're starting off with the card of Ersatstruppen that you can get. Now, this is probably one of the best cards in this division, since it allows you to have 10 squads on one card. And not only that, they are only 10 points apiece, which means in Phase B, you can bring in all 10 Ersatstruppen in one tick, which is crazy. But basically what Ersatstruppen are useful for is sort of spreading out across the front line in order to fill the holes where like the front line is pushing in. But also, something that a lot of people sort of overlook, you can overwhelm elite infantry squads, especially, for example, with the 101st, say. Your opponent's using airborne rifles. They have like 12-man squads. They've got pretty decent HE at close range. But at 100 meter range, the Ersatstruppens have 5 HE, which is pretty decent on its own. So 2 squads at a close range is 10 HE, right? And 3 squads is 15 HE, and that's like 30 points. So say an airborne rifle squad's 25 points. 3 Ersatstruppen to 1 airborne rifles. Ersatstruppen will win every single time, because they just have too many numbers. The airborne rifles start dying, they start losing their HE, and they just can't do anything. But like the Ersatstruppen, they just have so many men that it's ridiculous. Now, you have to be a bit careful about things like grenades, like the HE grenades and stuff, or flamethrowers, because Ersatstruppen will surrender like pretty much instantly to those kinds of things because of the dishearten trait. But infantry squads like, say, stormtroopers, and also, like airborne rifles, these Ersatstruppens can overwhelm them quite easily if you just like spam like a forest with Ersatstruppen. And even if they come with a bomber, I mean, it's 4 squads is like 40 points. It's not a big deal. So use these in different ways. Don't just sort of fill like a lot of people do with these. You sort of just back up the places that are kind of losing ground. Just actually use them tactically as well in order to just annihilate infantry squads with just pure mass. Now, also in Phase B, we have the Pioneer Führer. This is some extra command. These guys have the HE grenade. Now, honestly, it's very tempting for me to like not have the Pioneer Führer in Phase B and just have 2 squads of Grenadier, because I find smoke grenades with infantry is just so damn useful. But Pioneer Führers, they can hold their own. They have that 20 HE power grenade, which can be useful in certain situations as well. So I tend to just keep them in Phase B. Now, other Phase B infantry, well, there's quite a massive variance that you can bring in with the 352nd. And I guess it can be quite hard to sort of choose what you want to use. Stosstroop 2-star infantry squads. They have 3-star with a command nearby, and they have a hell of a lot of HE. 18 HE at 100 meter range. They can do a lot of damage, and they do have smoke grenades to facilitate them getting into the range they need to be. The main thing that lets the Stosstroop down is their strength. They're only 5-man squads, However, they are very cheap. But to me, what I need as the 352nd is staying power, especially as the infantry. You want to like whittle down the opponent's infantry just so that you can like overwhelm them slightly as you continue into the game, and it gets quite annoying for the opponent to keep up with the amount of infantry that you can throw at them. So with my infantry, what I do is I bring in grenadiers without the extra veterancy, just for availability, and the pioneers. Now pioneers I take in place of the Stosstroop, because pioneers get the 2 20 HE power grenades, which can delete squads instantly, like enemy infantry squads instantly. And so that basically fills the role of the Stosstroop. But they also have the 6 HE at long range, so much more versatile than a Stosstroop, for example. Then I have the grenadiers because they have a Panzerfaust. And having some sort of like AT-based infantry in the mid-game, I feel is very important to stop you being overrun by vehicles and armor. Because what people tend to do in the mid-game especially is they will try and like run down your units with surrenders. And if you've got AT on your units, then they have to be worried about that, because as soon as you come out of being forced to fall back, you can shoot at your opponent almost instantly with a Panzerfaust. And they have 10 accuracy, so they're pretty damn accurate. They will hit their target, and if they do, that target's dead. So keep your command nearby to give them the 1-star veterancy and to stop them from being surrendered. And then it just provides that extra little bit of presence that stops them throwing half-tracks down the road. If you just have Stosstroop, especially the Stosstroop from the 352nd, you don't have the Panzerfaust, and it can be really annoying. If these guys had a Panzerfaust, I would bring like 2 cards of these any day, but they don't have the Panzerfaust, and I feel like their role can be filled by the pioneers. So yeah, you can get more MG42s in Phase B, and you can also get some Sturm Pioneers in Phase C, but pioneers do the job of Sturm Pioneers. It's more preference. Do you like napalm and burning people to death, or do you like just blowing them up in one big go? It's really up to you guys. But that's the infantry tab. Not too much else to talk about, I don't think. So let's move on to the tank tab. The tank tab's pretty simple. I've got the 2 cards of Befehl Panthers and the Stug 3s. I believe this is pretty much exactly the same as I had it before, other than I changed the Phase C Stugs for Phase B Stugs. So I don't bring in these Panzer 35Rs. Some people rate these quite highly because they can definitely be a real annoyance to like enemy infantry early on, but they are just incredibly brittle still to enemy AT, and even like the weakest AT on the allied side can still penetrate this thing. So to me, too slow, just not useful. 45 points is nice and it looks nice, but yeah, to me just not worth it. So I bring in the Befehl Panzer 3 to provide some extra command in Phase A, and just in general, fire support. These do have 2 MG34s after all that can help pin down infantry squads. But yeah, you're starting with basically 4 command in Phase A if you include the Grenführer and the Befehl Panzer 3. And then in Phase B you have another 5 if you include the Pionierführer and the 2 Befehl Panzer 3s I have in Phase B. So that's that. Same role from Phase A to B with these Panzer 3s. You just use them as fire support for your infantry, pin down enemy infantry more specifically, and it helps you take out half-tracks and stuff. Now if you're dealing with anything a bit heavier, that's where the Stugs come in handy, and I feel like the Stugs fight a lot better in Phase B than they do in Phase C, because in Phase C the allied side can get a lot of 1200 meter range AT and tanks that really cause these Stugs a lot of problems because they only have the 10 armor, as opposed to the Stug 4s, which have like 12 armor, for example, which basically helps them survive a lot better, especially against the Americans. I say that because the Americans have 13 AP on the majority of their 1200 meter guns, compared to the 16 HE that the other allied forces have. So Stug 4s fare quite well against the Americans, but we don't have any Stug 4s available, so Stug 3s in Phase B is what I'm going to use and what I'm going to try and take advantage of in order to push through and solidify my position as I advance. You definitely need them to pop things like Shermans in the mid game. Otherwise, you can just be constantly pinned down with your infantry. So moving into the support tab, this is where the IG-18s come out to play. So I actually removed the IG-18s quite a bit from my 716th Division, but they still very much remain a staple part of the 352nd. I've got the 2 in Phase A, 9 HE, 6 round per minute rate of fire. These were nerfed from 4 to 3 accuracy, but still very nice infantry support guns. And for their cost, it's not too bad at all. Now you can get flamethrowers in Phase A, but I just don't think they're worth the cost. 20 points for the flamethrower squad, 15 points for the Kubel MG, 35 points each. Definitely not worth. Maybe if they came in a normal Kubel as just 20 point squads, then they can definitely back up your standard infantry. But because of the way that they come in with the Kubel MGs, to me it's just not worth it, and they're not worth the extra activation point in this support tab. Now in Phase A I do have Opel Blitz munitions, and that's to support my artillery tab here, because I have 81mm mortars and I tend to use them quite a lot in Phase A. So having the supply readily available then is good, and so having supply in Phase A is nice. Then I have more IG-18s available in Phase B, again just to replace the ones that probably got knocked out in Phase A. More supply. You get a total of 5 supply trucks in the way I've built it, and that's more than enough for any game. And then I have the IG-33s later on in Phase B as well. So that's 27 HE at 3 round per minute rate of fire. And these are slightly stronger squads in that they have like 7 strength. So they're a little bit more resilient, but the great thing about the IG-33 is it just demolishes infantry squads very, very quickly. They're pretty slow to push around, so bear that in mind, especially compared to the IG-18. They're pretty much almost half the speed. They take a while to get around, but yeah, IG-33s, nice addition to help you like push through towns and support you from the edge of towns as well. Let's move on to the anti-tank tab. Now this has been changed a little bit. They added Pack 38s with 2-star veterancy, and they added a Pack 40 with 2-star veterancy. They also changed the Marder 2s from packs of 3 rookies to 2 veterans, the ones with 1-star. So that's made Marder 2s a bit more desirable, but in my division, I'm just going with Pack 38s in Phase A, Pack 40s in Phase B, Pack 43s in Phase C, and then the Jagdpanthers. I mean, who doesn't love a good Jagdpanther? But if we just go back to Phase A, you can get Panzerschrecks, and honestly, I've always been tempted to bring Panzerschrecks with the 352nd Infantry. And I mean, I possibly would drop a card of the Jagdpanthers to bring in some Panzerschrecks in Phase A, because they can be so damn useful. But just couldn't find the right thought to like take away a Jagdpanther. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, guys. So they remain outside my division and don't take up one of my activation slots. You can also get Panzerjägers in Phase A as well. These are basically mobile AT guns with 10 rate of fire, which is pretty damn good, honestly. But I don't know. I just found them lackluster. They tend to get popped by, like, obviously enemy AT very easily. They get killed by things like Stuarts, Tetrarchs. They just don't have enough armor. And I really hate brittle units. I really do. I hate playing around them. It kind of annoys me quite a lot. So Panzerjägers, they came out of my division. I just rely solely on Pack 38s now. And I've got 4 of them in Phase A, which is more than enough. And you put this one, the 2-star one, in the most important place. So that's pretty much it for Phase A. Phase B, it's all about the Pack 40s. Pack 40s, I've shown you guys numerous times how effective they can be, and I'm just going to stick with that. 13 AP, 4 HE at 1200 meter range. They are fantastic. You can get the same stats on a Marder 2, but the trouble is with the Marder 2 is it's got 3 front armor, it's an open top vehicle. Same with the Marder 3. Like, it's got the same gun. These have both got the same gun, but they're just not worth it. like, if they get bombed, they die. If they get rocketed, they die. If they get hit by an AT gun, they die. It's just not good. If they get hit by something like a HE cannon from a Cromwell, they die. It's just silly. So to me, Pack 40s all the way. The 6 strength is just enough for them to survive a bombing strike from like 15 HE power bombs. And that's quite nice to allow you to sort of reposition and try again. Right, in Phase C, you get the Pack 43s, 2 of them with 1-star veterancy. You can get them in Phase B, but you only get 1 with no veterancy. So I prefer the availability with the extra experience for Phase C. Also, these are a lot cheaper to bring in than Yag Panthers. And if you're struggling for points in the late game, then yeah, I'm going to be bringing in budget Pack 43s rather than Yag Panthers, because basically the Yag Panther is like the Pack 43 gun mounted on tracks. So it's just a self-propelled 88mm gun. And it's pretty damn good. It's got 15 front armor, but make sure you keep that front armor facing, because as soon as you show that side armor, it's weak as hell. 5 side and rear armor. Be very careful with these Jag Panthers. They are very, very good at destroying enemy tanks, but as soon as they get panicked and they're running away and they show their side armor, they're dead. And that's just something you have to be very careful of. Keep them at max range, and make sure you have the smoke on standby from your mortars to make sure you're covering them off. Okay, so that's pretty much my anti-tank tab. Let's move on to the anti-air. So with the anti-air tab, there's quite a lot to choose from, but not really much that really stands out to me. I bring in the Flak 36-37mm in Phase A, 1000 meter range AA, just enough to, fend off the odd fighter and recon aircraft. You can also choose to bring in flak fillings instead. It's personal preference, and these are 800 meter range. Flak 36s are 1000 meter range. It's just up to you guys. Flak fillings are slightly cheaper and they do more damage. They will shoot down an enemy aircraft if they come overhead. But I feel that Flak 36s is just way more reliable at actually stunning enemy aircraft. Flak 38, 20mm, just don't bother. These 20mm AA, they can be good in certain situations when you have extra activation points to waste, and you maybe use them as fire support, but just not on the 352nd. You don't want them in these trucks. It's just not good. In Phase B, we have the flak fillings on wheels. We also have the SDKFZ72, which is the flak 36 on wheels, or half wheels, half track. These guys have 10 HE, again, same as the ground variant, but just on a half track. And again, it's just preference. Do you want the flak filling truck, or do you want half track with the 37mm on top of it? And aside from that, I also have 2 cards of the Flak 88s in Phase B, since you can't get any more in Phase C. And Flak 88s are just staple anti-air throughout the game with this division. Also, they can act as AT guns should you need one. For whatever reason, if you manage to run out of all of these AT guns, you can use the Flak 88s in their place. But generally, the Flak 88s in the 352nd are there to just be that anti-air. So you can get mobile wagons in Phase C, and maybe if I had an extra activation point, I might bring the 2-star mobile wagon. But honestly, not worth it, in my opinion. It just doesn't give me enough availability in order to take a slot from maybe the Flak 88s, for example. Now if we move on to the artillery, artillery is quite an odd one. There's a lot of interesting units here and a lot to choose from. So let's have a quick look. In Phase A, I bring in the 81mm mortars. The main reason I choose these over the FKs or the 120mm mortar is because A, availability, B, HE values decent and 1200 meter range, and C, smoke. The FK18s can't provide smoke. I wish they could, because I would bring them every time, but The 81mm mortars there are going to be the ones that I use to bring smoke. Now the 120mm can also bring smoke, but the availability is the main issue there in Phase A, and I'm kind of lacking activation points still. Now moving into Phase B, I do gain access to Nebelwerfers, FK-18s and SK-18s. Now the reason I'm bringing all of these in Phase B is quite simply for choice. There's a lot of scenarios where you would want to choose different ones of these. So for example, if you're playing against a player in a town or in a forest who's clumping their infantry, you want to bring in Nebelwerfers because you can hit them very effectively with those. If your opponent is using medium range artillery or mortars a lot and you want to have continued suppressive fire, then FK-18s are great. Whereas if you want to counter things like 25-pounders or longer range artillery, SK-18s are the choice. Now I wish I could fit in some off-map artillery in the form of these 100-point half-tracks with the 173mm off-map, but unfortunately, again, lack of activation points forces me to sacrifice these over the others, because the others can provide the sustained fire that would, over time, produce the same effect as one of these half-tracks. So that's where I go with the artillery there, and that's the sort of choices. You get the similar choices in the later phases, for example, more Nebelwerfers or more SK-18s, even Nebelwerfer 42. But the Nebelwerfer 42 doesn't provide enough availability for me, and these Nebelwerfers and SK-18s come in too late, and it's like only one more than you can get in Phase B anyway. So yeah, may as well make the choice in Phase B, right? So that's where I'm going with the artillery in this division. But definitely something that I think a lot of people may contest if you guys are watching. But anyway, let's move on to the air tab. So the air tab's pretty simple. There's only 4 activation slots to fill. I don't bring any aircraft in Phase A. The Storch isn't worth it for this division. The Ju-87 has 4 5HE power bombs. These literally tickle the enemy, so just not worth having. And the Me-109G0, it's tempting, but if I want to deal with that enemy aircraft in Phase A, I'll rely on my anti-air. I won't rely on these Me-109G0s just because they have quite a low amount of HE, especially if you compare them to a Focke-Wulf 190. And yes, the Focke-Wulf 190 costs 3 more points, but it's got medium resilience, it's got like an extra 6 HE, it goes faster, it's just all round better in a lot of ways. The only thing that it's worse at is its agility, but it generally doesn't matter in a dogfight with the majority of the opposing allied aircraft. So Focke-Wulf 190s in Phase B. I also bring in the 2-star one as well. This thing shoots down so many aircraft if you let it. Just getting that 10 HE on target just rips to shreds enemies, especially with the 2-star experience. But if you are struggling for like availability of aircraft, then you bring in the non-vetted ones as well, just to support you. And the other thing in Phase B is the Ju-87G, and again with the 2-star experience, this thing demolishes tanks. Like the accuracy is insane. You shift right-click command the enemy tanks, and they will die one after the other. It's as simple as that. Really, really good unit. Keep it alive as best you can. Make sure you've got it supported by either a Focke-Wulf 190 or decent AA, and just go ham with the Ju-87 with a 2-star veterancy. The ones without veterancy, they just tend to miss a lot, so I'm not going to favour the availability in this case. And the Focke-Wulf 190 G3s, again, they have the 4 5HE power bombs, just not worth bringing in. The Me-109 G2R1 only has 1 15HE power bomb, so not worth it. HS-129B3 with the extra AP value cannon is pretty decent, but doesn't find an activation slot over the Ju-88S, which has the 2 25HE power bombs. So damn good. Also, the brilliant thing about Ju-88 is it has a very good resilience, and it takes a lot of punishment before it's forced to fall back. If it's not forced to fall back, it drops its 2 25HE power bombs. It can blow up pretty much anything open top in one strike, unless you're unlucky. And yeah, it's just really, really nice. I really like the Ju-88. It's just a good punching power that you need in the later phases to get rid of certain units that are just annoying. And that's your lot. That's the 352nd Infantry. So, with the 352nd, like I said before, it's all about whittling down your opponent's infantry and then taking full advantage of that. So you use your infantry support guns in combination with your cheap infantry in order to take out their infantry with your more expensive infantry and your fire support. In Phase B, you want to be using the IG-18s alongside the Pak-40s, and that combination is deadly. It's so damn deadly. Like, IG-18s demolish anything that can be hit by HE, whilst the Pak-40s do the same, but also clean up enemy tanks and armor for you. And if you're struggling against particular armor like Shermans, then you can bring in a Stug as well, which makes your force a little bit more mobile in order to push forwards. 88s are there to supplement both anti-air and AT. You have your choice of artillery, you've got some decent aircraft in there, and of course you have those beautiful Jagdpanthers. But that's it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. Hopefully you maybe learnt something. Let me know what you guys think of my division, and of course let me know what your own look like. But in the meantime, that's all. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.